All right, welcome to a sports edition, Super Bowl Sunday edition of Buck What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Super Heavyweight. You follow me, I'll follow you back. And I have a very special guest, somebody I've been trying to get on here for a minute, Mr. Bucs Nation himself, James Hill. How you doing today?
Doing good, man. How are you doing? Super
Doing
Bowl Sunday.
Yes, sir, man. It's you know what's depressing about this. This is the last game of the season, so it's going to be fun, to watch this and see how everything unfolds. And again, it's the last game of the season, so you regardless of who's playing, you gotta kind of enjoy it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just wish that it was two different teams.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man, because the history with the Buccaneers and the Philadelphia Eagles, and of course everybody is going to root against the New England Patriots because they win all the time, I guess. I was good with the Patriots for what they did against the Atlanta Falcons, so I ain't no problem with it. If they win, I'm good with it. That what they did last year, last Super Bowl made me happy. So again, I'm not against either way.
Yeah.
So
I get what you're saying.
So if you would tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. I really love your podcast, by the way. I think you do great work, man. And there's a lot of insight in what you say. So I just want you to know I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, man. I do appreciate that. You can follow me on Twitter at Money James Hill. Obviously, my YouTube channel is Mr. Bucs Nation. Kind of do the same thing that you do here, just talk about Bucs stuff in general. Not nothing really crazy, just I kind of just roll with whatever the news rolls with too,
Yeah.
Right now I just talked about the whole Alex Smith trade that just happened, which was pretty interesting.
You know what, and while you're on that subject, that was something I thought that it had to happen because you've got Patrick Mahomes sitting behind Alex Smith, and you've invested a first round pick and a third round pick for this kid. You got to get him out there on the field as soon as possible. It would have been kind of awkward to re-sign Alex Smith to a big contract, and then this kid is still sitting here behind him and not getting a chance to compete. So it's something that needed to happen. They've eliminated a quarterback controversy, and I think they're going to be all right with him. I actually like what he's doing.
I like the move for both teams actually because like what you just said, Chiefs had to move on from Alex Smith eventually. He only had 1 year left on his deal. He's making like $18.5 million for this upcoming season. So it's like you like what you said, you invested in Patrick Mahomes. And if you can get a return like a third round pick and arguably one of the best slot cornerbacks in football right now, then pair him up with Marcus Peters. That's pretty good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this kid with his legs, man, he makes plays with his legs, and that's kind of what you need, especially in the AFC West, where it's pretty competitive. And if Denver gets a quarterback, they're right back in the conversation again. Then you have John Gruden coming back to the Raiders, so that's going to be a very interesting division, when it comes right down to it. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to go ahead and jump into the Super Bowl, where we have the Philadelphia Eagles playing against the defending champion New England Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you have a quarterback who is an amazing quarterback in I want to say Peyton Manning. I don't know why I had Peyton Manning on the brain. Tom Brady. Tom Brady is just, what he's been able to do, and I think that it's phenomenal. And, I'm really, it's going to be a really interesting game to see how he plays against this defense that Philadelphia is bringing out there. So I want to get your thoughts on that. What do you think?
I never put anything past Tom Brady anymore. I learned from my mistake last year when it was 28-3. Everybody makes jokes about it. Us Bucs fans, we always give the Falcons crap about it for good reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since then, that really reminded me, like, what, Tom Brady can do anything in this league, and it won't be surprising anymore. The dude just won the MVP award again, going for his 6th Super Bowl win. He's played in what, 9 Super Bowls, I believe, right? 8 or 9.
I think 8 or 9, something like that.
So that's insane. And I think that I don't like the Patriots, but Tom Brady can handle anything you throw at him. He's just proven that.
Yeah, yeah, with the exception of the Giants, of course. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Always the Giants, it's always the Giants. But I it will be interesting to see because for as much as we gave the Eagles crap, at least I did. I know I did. Um, they're a pretty complete team. So, it'll just be interesting to see, I guess. Will Tom Brady finally crumble? Probably not, but you never know, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
I have one of the people in the chat, Brandon Fuller, was asking, how do you compare Tom Brady to Joe Montana? And
oh,
I'll let you go, and then I'll give my opinion after that.
yeah. I mean, like, it's so hard to compare the two because they played in really different like leagues, essentially. You know, I would I don't know. Like that's tough to say. I guess I'd still say Tom's better, but it's hard to say, but I would say Tom's better, but Joe Montana's up there too. Like I think they're both top 3 for sure.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that Tom Brady is,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are gonna disagree with this, but in this age of free agency, the fact that he hasn't had the same team every single year, he's had to work with different players that come in, other than maybe Gronkowski and Julian Edelman as of late. Throughout his career, he's had to work with different wide receivers. You even had Randy Moss on that team. That was the season they lost, but you understand what I'm saying. They get these different players. You have a LeGarrette Blount as a running back, and just all the different pieces that he's had to work with. I don't see Joe Montana doing that. And then when Joe Montana went from San Francisco to Kansas City, Kansas City didn't go to the Super Bowl. They didn't do anything. You have a quarterback of that stature, and no matter whatever they've put around Tom Brady, he's been able to work with that and be successful with it. Whereas I look at Joe Montana and who he's had around him, and I would just have to say that Tom Brady has elevated his game. I add in free agency, and I add in, I kind of have to take away the more physical. Nowadays is less physical than what it was and what Joe Montana had to deal with in his era. However, I look at the players, and Tom Brady's been able to work with all of them and make them all look good. I mean, from Gronk to Aaron Hernandez, just on down the line, he's just been able. It didn't matter who it is out on the field. He's going to make it work. So to me, I would have to say Tom Brady hands down. I love Joe Montana. I got to see him play, and I have to go back to and I compare body of work. I still have to go with Tom Brady, just based on those few things.
Yeah, especially since now, like Tom Brady's going to be holding a lot of records here.
Yeah,
he's about to break. But
what is that? 247 yards he needs to go over 10,000 yards in the playoffs.
Yeah, like he's going to hold all these records. It's just statistically, the dude's a monster. Like it's really scary.
Now here's the second end of this question. He asked, could Tom Brady win without Belichick or vice versa? Who do you think is more valuable? I'm going to say they need each other. This is one of those situations where I couldn't see Tom Brady going to another system, another team, and doing what he does. I would have to physically see it, because that's the only thing I've ever seen is Tom Brady and Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
However, Bill Belichick, he's not just the offense, but he works with the defense. I know he has defensive coordinators, but just everything that he's able to accomplish, I think that a lot of it revolves around Tom Brady. So I feel like this team would not be the same team if they were separated from each other. So I'm going to say they equally need each other, and I'm not going to put one above the other.
Yeah, I would probably say the same thing, because even with Belichick used to coach the Browns, and he took the Browns to a couple of playoff games, but they never went to like the Super Bowl or anything. As soon as he got Tom Brady, boom, dynasty. Like I think that those two kind of go hand in hand. It would be really interesting to see though if Belichick ever did move Tom, because you remember all that uh, rumors and drama going around how Belichick wanted to move Tom, kind of, and like he wanted to win with Garoppolo, and um, Robert Kraft said no. It'd be really interesting to see if a scenario like that did actually happen, though, where Tom went to some other. Honestly, if Tom would, if one go, if it's a scenario where Tom's knows he's gonna be, sent to a different team, he might as well just retire. Honestly, like
Yeah, I couldn't see him being part of a rebuilding project. I think this is where he belongs, and this is where he should retire. To be very honest, again, he's just unflappable. I mean, we saw that in the Bucks game that Tampa. I felt like Tampa should have won.
oh yeah,
And it shouldn't have come down to kicks. It should have come down to touchdowns. But again, that's in the past. It's 2017, and I'm sticking all that behind me. I know a lot of people. We were all disappointed with how the Bucks did, and at the end of the day, I'm just putting that behind me, and I'd rather just kind of move on to 2018. But what I kind of want to get back to the team that I'm actually interested in watching, the Philadelphia Eagles. I hate their fan base, but I'm really curious to see how does this Philadelphia Eagles team match up against the New England Patriots, especially with their defense. I really like Philly's defense. I think that those guys come out there and they bring it, and I think they match up well against this New England Patriots team. What are your thoughts?
yeah. I really like the Eagles, specifically their defensive line. I think their defensive line's ridiculous. A lot of people, whenever they were playing the Vikings, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, Vikings, Vikings were going to smoke them." I thought the Vikings were going to smoke them, but then that Eagles defense just proved to be just monsters. And they're pretty. They got a pretty complete defense. Defensive line's good. Linebackers are pretty solid. And the defensive back situation isn't bad either. I specifically like Jalen Mills. He's a corner that I like him a lot. Um, I think they're right up there with the Jaguars defense in terms of a team that can really give the Patriots a good run for their money.
Yeah,
Because
you know what and one thing, like, we're talking about the defensive line, and that has been my focal point, I would say, since middle of the season. I've just been watching teams, watching their defensive lines just to see how they function, because I don't know. I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I went back all the way back to 2003. And I'm this is a Bucks. We're talking about the Bucks. I'm going to bring this into the situation right now. But since 2003, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have only drafted 18 defensive ends, defensive tackles, or nose tackles. They've only drafted 18, and only a few of them have been top picks. So what that really shows me is that they haven't been paying close enough attention to the defensive line. Then you look at a team like a Jacksonville Jaguars team, where if you go back and look at their draft history just over the past 6 years, what they've been doing with that defensive line, they've been kind of shoring it up little by little by little. And I think, what is it, like one season they didn't draft a defensive lineman, but continuously they're bringing those guys in because they realize the importance of that position. So I really, again, going back to the Eagles and what they've built up, I think the Eagles can do it. And as far as, I know Brendan Fuller mentioned Nick Foles. I think he'll be just fine, to be honest. I think he's been overlooked and underappreciated. I mean, you even hear talk right now that they're talking about shipping this guy off, regardless of whether they win the Super Bowl or not. So, I mean, I think that he needs to go somewhere else and get in a system that fits his skill set, and I think he'll be just fine. But I believe that Philadelphia is definitely in a position where they can win this game, and they can defeat the New England Patriots.
Yeah, it's It's always depressing to see actual good off defensive linemen play, isn't it? You know, Bucks weren't they, last in sacks this past year.
Yeah, it was horrible.
They almost average what drafting one defensive lineman a draft almost, barely like 1.5, I feel like.
Oh, the Bucks.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
they've skipped seasons
yeah,
without drafting anybody. I mean, in the top three, and
yeah,
again, they just aren't paying enough attention. Then every so often they'll throw a free agent at it and feel like, oh, okay, we've addressed the defensive line where they really haven't put a lot of emphasis on it. If you
yeah.
if you know what I mean.
I'm always a strong believer in building through the trenches. That's just how you see successful teams do it. And I feel like well, you need to commit good money and good draft picks to the lines, otherwise you're just, what are you doing? You need to keep on throwing stuff at this. Eventually something will stick.
Right. But I
Um,
mean, if you have safe picks, like you're looking at Chubb, and I've heard some Vea. I can't think of the guy's name from Washington. Help me out here.
I know Marcus Davenport was a
Not Vita
name.
Vita Vea, defensive tackle.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember his name either.
Okay, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Just players like that are considered safe picks, guys that could come in and actually play. And
Hmm.
another thing that I've mentioned too on the podcast the last couple of weeks, if they bring in a free agent, they need to bring in a free agent who's been playing at a high level to come in, not
Hmm.
somebody who's uh, been a reserve or somebody that comes in every so often. There's not a lot of game film on them, or they have one breakout season and you compare that to the rest of their game film and you're unsure. You want somebody like Calais Campbell was a guy that I got to see living here in Arizona. I've gotten to watch him play, and he plays at a high level on a consistent basis.
Hmm.
He's a guy that would have been ideal to get in to get in next to Gerald McCoy. I think they would have wreaked havoc. Just, it would have elevated Gerald's game because he makes everybody around him better. That's just Calais Campbell. That's just what he's done throughout his career. That's what Tampa needs. Tampa needs the guys that are playing past the whistle a little bit into that gray area. That, and you're just not seeing it. And you haven't seen that for some time. They're, basically pretty passive.
Yeah. I think they tried that. They tried to get that kind of player in Robert Ayers, and it's kind of worked,
Yeah.
but obviously you need more.
But then you have to consider, Robert Ayers is on the back end of his career.
Mhm.
You ideally you want somebody who's in their prime or somebody who's just getting to a point where they're getting to that spot. But again, when you get people on the back end of their career, you may get one, maybe two good seasons out of them if there are no injuries, which hasn't been the case, unfortunately, with Robert Ayers with his injury situations.
Yeah, and you know, I'm a big Ziggy Ansah guy. I
Mm.
really hope that if Ziggy Ansah hits free agency, we should at least try and get him. But it always sucks looking back on hindsight, especially with the Bucks.
Yeah.
And Calais Campbell was the one that we missed out on a lot, and I feel like a lot of people, I know a lot of people are clamoring for like Ziggy Ansah, and Demarcus Lawrence was a big one too, but I don't think Demarcus Lawrence is going anywhere.
Yeah, I think
Um,
they'll re-sign him. I was kind of wondering about Dallas's cap situation, and with all the holes that they have, I was hoping that he would make it out to free agency, and they would be able to, at least the Bucks would be able to take a look at him and see if we could possibly get somebody like that. Now, see, again, there's a player that's playing at a high level. I think he could come in and definitely make an impact on this defensive line, because when you look at the edge rushers that Tampa had, they just weren't there, and that was huge. It was a huge knock on his defense,
but
not having those edge rushers.
yeah, and a lot of it broke down to injuries too. Like Noah
Right.
Spence, he hasn't been healthy since we drafted him. That's been a big issue. Or as you said, Robert Ayers was injured, and it showed the lack of depth we had. at our defensive line. You know, we signed what was it, Will Clark? Is that his name? We were playing Will Clark a
Yeah,
couple
yeah,
of games. We were playing the
yeah,
you know, I think his last name's Russell.
yeah,
We
yeah.
were,
I know
we,
you. Yeah, I know
you know,
you're
we,
talking.
and it's just like our depth wasn't. You know, we were signing and playing these guys immediately, and it's like, wow, our depth wasn't as good. You know, we had William Golson who was injured for chunks of the season as well. It was bad, and then
Yeah,
we had the whole Chris Baker situation, which
yeah.
that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, and yeah, we get back to that. So just and I had to bring that point up with Tampa because I want to emphasize just how important the defensive line is, and we can see that. You look at Minnesota's defensive line, you look at Jacksonville's defensive line, you look at the Eagles' defensive line, and even New England. New England was giving up a lot of yards, but when it got into the red zone, they weren't allowing points. And
Mhm.
that right there is very important. That's even more important than all the yards you give up. Who cares? If you keep the opposite team from scoring, that's more important. So when I look at that, I'm like, that's an ideal defense. I would give up all the yards in the world if I didn't give up points. I would I
Yeah,
would I would be happy with that. I'd be
yeah,
good with that.
and it's funny because that fits perfectly into what Mike Smith's defense is supposed to be. You know, whenever he came in, his defense was always the bend but don't break defense, and
And
he
we
needs
saw that a lot in 2016.
yeah, and he needs he needs good defensive linemen to get that kind of defense going. Obviously, it's worked with the Eagles, and it's working with these championship teams. You know, you got to build in the trenches, otherwise you're going to have a rough
Yeah.
time. You know, if you can't have the quarterback making mistakes, if you can't force him to make mistakes, then you're not going to win.
Yeah. And when we're talking about that, I'd like to jump over to the offensive side of the ball here. And what do you see from Philadelphia that they have to do in order to win this game?
It's going to be hard. They need to get their run game going first and foremost. I've always been a big supporter of like the run game for just in football in general. You have Jay Ajayi there. You have LeGarrette Blount there as well. That's a pretty good running back combo. You need to get both of them going, and then also if Nick Foles gets going, then I mean you saw how good Nick Foles can be. He torched the Vikings like that in an insane game. He's going to get a lot of money. You just need to do what got you to the Super Bowl, basically, and that was having a pretty good run game while making sure that Nick Foles doesn't have to do too much.
That's right. And you want to simplify the game for him, and you want to put him in a position where he's not going to make mistakes. And that's what's important. And that comes down to coaching. I think that's what this game is going to come down to is coaching. If the Eagles are successful in the first half, whatever they're doing in the first half, they have to do it in the second half. They can't put in you can't make adjustments. Now, if things aren't working in the first half, then you make adjustments and see what works in the second half. But if whatever's working, you got to stick with it. I mean, if the run game is working, you can't abandon the run and start getting cute with passes and stuff like that. You have to stick with what is working. And you see that every year some team gets like, let's look at Jacksonville. Jacksonville should be playing. I mean, should have gotten farther than they did, but they got away from what was working and it killed them. It just flat out killed them, and they can't do that.
Yeah, that it's the reason Jacksonville lost to the Patriots. It's the reason the Falcons lost to the Patriots. It's I don't understand why teams who are up against the Patriots in the first half decide like, okay, we're up by a healthy margin. Let's switch our entire offensive and defensive mindset. It's like you shouldn't do that. If you're running the ball and it's working, then keep on running the ball. If it worked, then it's probably still going to end up working.
And that's the key. You have to make the defense stop you before you make any adjustments. And if they're not showing any signs of that, you keep going with what works. And that's, I mean, Jay Ajayi, I think that was huge. That was stupid on Miami's part, but it was huge for the Eagles to get him. And I feel like, this guy could be the key to the game, to be honest.
Yeah. You know, you want to make sure this doesn't end up being a shootout, because it'll be rough for the Eagles if it's a shootout. Jay Ajayi, really underrated. I feel like if you get him going, he can end up being one of the better running backs in the league. He's proven that. So if you get Jay Ajayi going, he really could prove to be a big problem for this Patriots defense. Then if you rotate in guys like LeGarrette Blount and maybe some other guys that they have on the bench, then the Patriots are just going to have a rough time. They showed it against the Jaguars with Leonard Fournette. So I feel you're right. Jay Ajayi could be a really big problem for this Patriots defense.
And it's amazing remembering LeGarrette Blount here in Tampa and seeing him run the ball now and how he's hitting the hole when he's running, and it's like night and day. And he can, like you mentioned, LeGarrette Blount, he can be a factor as well in this game if he's running, he's hitting a hole and he's being aggressive and, that being that dominant back, especially, short yardage situations.
Yeah. It always pains me to see Bucs players, leave the Bucs and then go off and do really well with other teams. LeGarrette Blount is a amazing example of this, because he's gone to the Super Bowl however many times now. This is probably his fourth Super Bowl, I feel like.
A third or fourth, something like that.
Yeah. In his two different teams now. He went with the Patriots, won a couple, and now he's in there with the Eagles. Blunt's proven to be a really just sturdy, reliable back with a lot of longevity to him. He's in his 30s now, I believe. And he can still go, and it seems like he's just as powerful as he was when he was in Tampa. He obviously doesn't hurdle people as much, but he's still really powerful, and he adds a pretty interesting dynamic to that Eagles offense. And I think the offensive line can support him too. He can just run it right up the gut. The goal line, it's going to be dangerous with Blount.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before we get up out of here, what are your thoughts? What's the score? What's your score for this game?
Well, like I said, you can't count out Tom Brady. I mean, I love Nick Foles. If he wins, he's going to get so much money, by the way, which I'm excited for him.
Yeah.
He'll get traded somewhere.
But it's going to mess up our draft pick. It's going to mess up the draft board, I'm sure.
Yeah,
we'll get to that later, but
we'll do that another time. But like I said, I never count out Tom Brady, and at this point, I don't count out teams just making mistakes, bonehead mistakes against the Patriots. I'm going to say 23-17 New England.
Wow. I've got 24-21 Philadelphia.
Okay. I like that. I like that.
Just because it's going to be one of those situations like you talked about. They're playing in a controlled environment. Dome's going to be up, so you don't have to worry about the elements. And I think that Philadelphia will find a way to win this. I would be so excited to. Again, I hate their fan base. Can't stand the Eagles have Philadelphia fan base. Period. Has the worst fan base in all of sports. I mean, I'm talking hockey, kickball, tiddlywinks, chess, checkers, bingo, whatever it is. I'm sorry, Philadelphia. The only thing that I hate is the fact that that fan base is going to get a Super Bowl finally, and it just annoys me. But
yeah,
I'm taking the fans out of this. I'm just looking at the two teams, and I feel like the Eagles can win this game, and I really think they will.
I hope they win, because I don't want to see New England win a sixth Super Bowl. That would just make me so sad. The Patriots are the perfect example of like a pure dynasty in the NFL. They're probably one of the only examples in recent history. So it's just like, please just stop winning, you know?
Yeah.
Patriots fans need to know what it feels like to lose, you know?
Exactly. And again, eventually this dynasty's got to end somewhere. And what was I saw something on Twitter where Brady won the MVP and no MVPs ever won the Super Bowl or something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was like in recent history, like it was like eight people who've won MVP went to the Super Bowl have lost it. So
Yeah, and just it would be my luck that Brady would be the one that breaks that streak.
he would be the one to do it, you know. So
He
that
totally crushed the Madden curse. I mean, he just everything he does, it just it's
yeah,
disgusting
Tom
sometimes.
Brady's on another level of existence compared to the rest of us mortals, I guess. So
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be a fun game. I just kind of have to mentally block out the Eagles fan base, but other than that, it should be a fun game. I think it'll be interesting to see if the Eagles and my keys to the game. Eagles have to get after Tom Brady. They have to make him uncomfortable. Again, and the Eagles on the other side of the ball have to run the ball effectively in order to open up that play action to get some of those receivers open. And I think that they can win, and they have to utilize their tight end. Tight end is going to be a huge part of this game because from what I've seen, that's the one place that New England struggles is that tight end position is going up against the tight end position. So those are my keys to the game.
yeah, for me, it's going to be like what you said. You got to pressure Tom Brady. If you give Tom Brady any amount of time, he's going to make you pay for it. For New England, you need to try and stop the combo of Jay Ajayi and LeGarrette Blunt, and you also need to get your guys, your deep threats involved. Your Brandon Cooks, your Gronk. You need to get Gronk going, and all in all, you just need to try and try and limit your mistakes on defense because the weak part of the Patriots is their defense. So just try and limit your mistakes on defense, and the offense can take care of the rest. But for the Eagles, it's get LeGarrette Blount, get Jay Ajayi going, simplify it for Nick Foles, and get pressure on Tom Brady. And I think they would be fine, and get Zach Ertz going as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then for New England, again, they have to run the ball. They have to be effective running the ball, and they have to stay on the field. You can't play the field position battle with the Philadelphia Eagles. But again, that X factor is Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I'm sure that we're going to see a game plan tonight that we haven't seen this year because that's what Bill Belichick does.
Yeah.
Is he's a master manipulator, and that's what he does. He's gonna show Philadelphia something they haven't seen, they haven't been able to game plan for. So those are things that I expect from him. And again, that's one of those X factors. But I think that team wise, I think Philadelphia can overcome that.
Yeah, it should be a pretty exciting game. Like you said, Bill Belichick, probably the best coach ever in the NFL. And he always pulls out something different regardless of whatever team he's playing, from week to week.
Right.
And I feel bad for the Eagles because how do you prepare for something that is going to be so different, you have to prepare for anything if you're the Eagles, and that's hard to do, especially with the amount of time that they had. So it'll be interesting to see. I do like Doug Peterson, though. If there is a coach in the league who could do a pretty good job of preparing them, it would, in my opinion, be Doug Peterson. So it should be a good game. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, most definitely. So I'm definitely going to have to get you on again. This is a lot of fun. Maybe we can around free agency after the Bucs make their first free agent moves to see what they're doing. And I'll tell you just because we haven't really been on together, but I want to see. It's going to be interesting to watch this process because, as we know, Jason Light and Dirk Cutter are playing for their jobs right now. So everything they have to do, they have to get it right. They have to get everything right. And there's no more excuses. It's either get to the playoffs or you're out of here. And they just have to do it. So again, this is going to be interesting from free agency on into the draft, on into camp, on into the first game of the season. I'm going to really be watching closely to see what they do. I'm hoping for the best because again, at the end of the day, we're all Bucs fans. That I want to see them win. I just want to see the Bucs win. I don't care who's coaching. Well, almost anybody, but anybody, the majority of, I just want this team to be winning. I want them to get to the playoffs. I would love to give my money to the Bucs so I can go to a playoff game. I mean, I haven't been able to do that for I don't know how long. And it's just something I think the fans deserve it. Especially season ticket holders and fans that can't afford season tickets, but they catch all the games. They deserve it. This long overdue that Bucs fans that support this team get a winning product on the field, and that's ultimately what I want to see happen.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like you said, Dirk and Light, they're going for their jobs here. They're playing for their jobs. I think we're going to see some old school Bucs off season, where they're throwing high amounts of cash, maybe make a big splashy trade, stuff that we haven't seen from Jason Light since kind of his first season.
But he's just got to hit on them again. If they just have to get players that are playing at a high level. I don't want anybody that I can't go out and find game film on and see what they've been doing over the past couple of seasons. I want to know that, we bringing this guy in. We know what he's about. We know what he's going to do. That's what's important. And that's kind of what I'm looking for from this team. So, yeah, again, you always an open invitation. I know that your schedule kind of conflicts with ours, but if there's ever a time that we're doing a live show, you're always welcome on. And I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. I love the format of this show. I remember first thing I saw whenever I watched an episode of this, I was like, oh wow, he's got like that professional setup, man. He's got the I was like, this is like a legit this looks like a legit like radio type show. I like this, man. I think it's awesome. So I'm definitely down to come back on. We're in one of the most exciting times of the year, at least for Bucs fans and for, other fans. It's the off season, re-signings, trades, free agency, draft. It's going to be a fun couple of months here. There's going to be a lot of content for specifically, just not just for my channel, but for your channel as well. We're going to have a lot to talk about, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And what's interesting to me, and this, I just have to temper my expectations because I know some teams are going to come out of nowhere and mess everything up. So I just have to be ready and just whatever the final product is that they put on the field when the Bucs start, the regular season, that's what we're going to have to roll with. And I'm praying that nothing happens to Tampa again, and that we can just get through all this and have a normal season, because I can tell you right now, last year was just not normal in any way.
Yeah, it's so hard to temper expectations. I'm going to do my hardest this year to do that, because it always happens. Right now everybody's saying Bucs are going to go 7-9 at best, 6-10. As soon as that off season hits, as soon as we get done with free agency and the draft, we're going to be right back to saying 10-6. Gonna win the division, 11-5, and that's just us being fans, like there's nothing wrong with that, but it's so hard to keep level-headed because you get excited,
Yeah, absolutely.
You sign some big names, you draft some big names. Could you imagine if we drafted like a really high marquee player like a Saquon Barkley or a Bradley Chubb? Like we'd lose our minds. We'd say he'd get like 22 sacks, or it'd be insane. But I think it'll be a good off season. I think we'll have a lot to talk about still. And
absolutely.
It should be fun.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, hey man, thanks a lot. And before we go out, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you again. And when is your next broadcast?
So again, you can follow me on Twitter at Money James Hill. My YouTube channel, Mr. Bucs Nation, just did a video talking about the whole Alex Smith trade. I also do live streams. I currently have a Madden franchise going on there that we do. We also just chill and talk about Bucs stuff on there. I know you've been there a couple of times, Gene. we just do Buck stuff, Bucks related talk. Next video, I probably gonna be getting more in depth with Kirk Cousins. However, since there's not been a lot of Buck stuff lately.
Let me ask you, before we jump out of here, let me ask your opinion. What do you think about Washington being petty and keeping him and franchising him and then trying to trade him? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But
it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard because there's no way they're going to do that. Because if you franchise tag him, you're paying him $30-something million.
Right, it's like $34 million. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're a team like who needs quarterback, like the Browns, the Jets, you're sitting there thinking like, we'll give you a 6th round pick. Like you're not going to keep him.
Yeah.
Like, it's just,
and you're not going to get value for him either.
No, there's no way they do that. If they do that, then I really don't know what to say about the Redskins organization.
Daniel Snyder. That's all you have to say. And people bash the Glazers. You can bash the Glazers all you want, but I'll take the Glazers way over Daniel Snyder any day.
And they have and they have the former Bucs general manager.
Bruce Allen.
Bruce Allen. So it's just, hey, the Bucs didn't want him, and he went off to the Redskins. There's a reason we didn't want Bruce Allen because he does insane things.
Yeah, RG3. Yeah, there you go. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see though. But yeah, that'll be probably the next thing I'm talking about. Bucs related stuff. I'm probably going to be talking about like Kendall Beckwith soon. Probably. I really like Kendall Beckwith.
Yeah.
So.
You know what? And as you know, if you followed, I'm on the Kendall Beckwith apology tour, which is almost over as soon as the draft gets here, because I was dead ass wrong about this guy. I was mad that the Bucs picked him up. I was mad they picked up Justin Evans, and these guys have played way above my expectations. So again, I was wrong, and I don't have a problem. I'm wrong all the time. I don't have a problem getting on here in front of everybody and saying I was wrong about this guy, and I'm glad I was wrong. And again, is one of those things where, Tampa, they're getting players that are being able to contribute. And again, if they can fix that defensive line and maybe do some adjustments and get that offensive line going, get a decent back that scares the daylights out of the defenses that we face. I mean, you're in business. I mean, it's just the certain players that they just don't have that they really need. And, it could be a totally different team. I mean, you look at the Jags. Jags were a 3-win team, and then they end up going to the playoffs the next year. So anything's possible, the parity of the NFL.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the Jags just blew it up. They threw all this money into free agency. They changed a lot of things around. They fired their head coach, and now they went from 3-13 to AFC Championship game. I don't know if that's necessarily the route the Bucs need to take because that'd be insane. But
whatever they can do to get this team in the direction where they're not consistently losing and they're winning games that they should be winning, that makes all the difference in the world, because there's no way in God's green earth they should have lost. They should have only won 5 games this year. No way.
Yeah, and I feel particularly better. I don't know if you were a guy who wanted Dirk Cutter around or not. I, for one, if we could have gotten John Gruden, then yes, I would have said, okay, Dirk Cutter can, go away. But now that we don't have John Gruden, now I'm willing to be more patient.
I'm going to say this, and I've been pretty consistent about this. I don't care who's coaching as long as the Bucs are winning games. Statistics are cool. It's cool to talk statistics, but wins and losses are where it's at.
Yeah,
wins and losses are where it's at. So. Again, if they can fix the running game, if they can fix that defensive line, you're getting pressure on the quarterback. That means everybody else is able to do their job a lot better. That's going to make your secondary better. That's going to make your safeties better. And considering the linebacking core that we have, that's basically the crown jewel of this team. Basically the way they've played. The defensive line is the key to getting this defense so you can get those 3-and-out stops. And I think that, this team will have a competitive team, especially in a division as tough as the NFC South, where you had 3 teams from the NFC South going into the playoffs. And the Bucs should have been one of those teams just based on the talent that they had. But again, it didn't happen. And, you just have to look forward to 2018. I personally believe that you're going to be surprised with some of the changes that they make. And I feel like they're going to turn this around, me personally.
Yeah, no, like, obviously, I mean, I'm a big supporter of, they need to work on the offensive line, specifically guard, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then they need to work on edge rushers. For defensive tackle, I think if you roll with Gerald McCoy and Clinton McDonald, that's pretty decent in my opinion. I mean, yes, you should bring in another guy defensive tackle, but edge rusher is the thing.
Yes.
No, yeah,
the Bucs just did not have that at all.
yeah, you can keep Robert Ayers, I guess. You can still have Noah Spence there, but you need to do something better because William Golston, he's
absolutely
he's not the best. He's not the best. And obviously our depth was really poor. So if you need to sign guys, be it Ziggy Ansah, be it whoever, if DeMarcus Lawrence hits free agency from some miracle of God, you gotta improve at guard on the offensive line. You gotta improve at defensive end. That's just how it is. If you're protecting your quarterback, everybody does better, and if you're rushing the quarterback, everybody does better. That's just kind of how it works.
Yeah.
And I've calmed it down now. I'm back on the Dirk train, like you said. As long as we get wins, it doesn't really matter who's there, because they'll be good. They'll they'll automatically become good in Bucs fans' eyes. It just
winning covers a multitude of sins. Believe me.
Yeah, you just gotta win. Bucs haven't been in the playoffs since 07, right?
07, yeah.
So it's been 11 years, man. Yeah. We got to get back there.
Yeah. There's no excuses, and if they can't do it, they need to get some people in here who can, and that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, they just got to put their heads down now and work. And us as fans, we just got to trust them. And I'm willing to do that. I'll be more patient.
It's just hard. It's hard to trust the system when you're not seeing results. But again, here we are now. I mean, there's nothing we as fans can do other than stop watching them. We just kind of have to let these guys do their job and see what happens at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it eventually just reaches a point where it's like we haven't seen results from so many different guys now, where it's like, since Shiano, Lovie Smith, Raheem Morris, we only saw a couple of seasons there where we got some form of results, and then we hit right back to the bottom. So it's just, we just got to be patient, and eventually, due to probability, sometime in the future it'll happen. But we just got to be patient, because there's nothing else we can do. What are we going to do? Write an angry letter to the Glazers saying, like, you need to fix this?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, they're multi-million-dollar guys.
Yeah, you're right. There you go. Well, hey, thank you so much for getting on. I appreciate that. And what we'll do here, is we'll get together here when we get closer to the free agency to kind of discuss this a little bit more. I have a problem rant series on YouTube. Okay, Dave, I'll check it out. Shoot me the link. But anyway, I'm going to get off here and get ready for the Super Bowl and eat a lot of food and get ready for the commercials.
Me too, man.
If this team could, if they could both tie, I'd be good with that. Too bad that you can't have a tie in the Super Bowl. That would be awesome, because then they would both
play. Have them play enough overtimes until they have to delay the game till like a couple weeks from now. That's my hope.
That would be nice, and then they would have to split the trophy. That would be cool with me.
Yeah, because eventually they'll just get so tired, nobody will know what to do.
I know it's not going to happen, but that would be the ideal situation for me.
Exactly.
But anyway, that's it for me. Hey, thank you everybody that's out there in the chat. I appreciate it. As usual, you guys bring it, and I do appreciate that. So that's it for me, and enjoy the Super Bowl, and I will be back on Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern for Buck What You Heard. Thank you so much, and have a good night.